you end the episode, every episode with run for someone who can't, right? Means a lot to us, means a lot to you, it means a lot to people out there. And there was a moment in this documentary, and I'll let you talk about it and explain it, but Tim Walsh, the race director, Dead Cow Goalie, had a beautiful portion of that. You remember where we're at with that one?
Yeah, I think he was down and out or getting ready to quit or something. And Tim went up to him and just said, hey, remember, you're not running this for yourself. You're running for those who can't run. And my eyes just lit up. It's like, that's why we're doing something like this. That's why it's so important, because there are plenty of runners out there, or plenty of people out there, I should say, who desperately want to run and either were previous runners or never got to run ever. When you hear something like that and you're trying to put it all on the line, it like refocuses you on, wow, it's much bigger than me. Welcome back, guys, to the Threshold Podcast, the podcast for the everyday runner. And today we have a multitude of topics to talk about. We got the Hardrock 100 potential cancellation. We got Boston Marathon's new qualification standards, a heat training breakdown, and maybe even a candid conversation between Tanner and I on what it means to be a good pacer for the upcoming Superior 100 race. Tanner, it has been too long, but we are back in the studio.
Back in the flesh.
Yes.
Butts are in the chair.
Butts in seats.
How about it?
It's awesome, man.
Been good?
It's been good. 4th of July wrapped up, and, I think it was relaxing, but I did go down to southern Minnesota. My brother is a pyrotechnic, meaning he has a license to light off fireworks. And we watched a show probably too close to the actual fireworks themselves. 15-minute show was amazing.
Because he got the keyboard computer, like you don't even have to light a match or a lighter anymore. You just click some buttons and they go exploding.
100% right. He gave himself a 62 out of 100. I said, what do you rate yourself? Wow, this switcher didn't do this. I'm like, man, you don't tell anyone that, because from my perspective, it looked beautiful. It lit up the entire sky. And yeah, he had the switcher. He was pushing buttons, and it was an incredible show.
It's pretty impressive what they can do with these things these days, huh?
Really is.
Did you get out and run yesterday?
I did. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about a potential new challenge that I gave myself. So I'm back out running, been running this week, but it has been hot, man.
It has been warm. And that's why I'm excited to talk about kind of this heat training protocol stuff today. But yeah, I was impressed. I got on Strava and was looking around, and I saw everyone was running their 4th of July 5Ks and getting after it, bearing the heat. And, I got out and got a run in, and I saw a lot of people getting a 5K in, but there was also a big 50K holiday race that happened, which is kind of odd to see a big trail race take place on holidays, especially holiday weekends. But Afton Trail Race took place, and yeah,
it's like, how do you attract runners to your race on a weekend that historically is like, let's go up north in Minnesota, let's go do this?
It sounded like a good turnout. I'm looking right here, and we're showing 282 starters in the 50K and 481 starters in the 25K. Okay. So we're looking at just around, what is that? Just under 800 total runners.
Not bad at all.
I think on average, Afton is right around 1,000 runners. So, I mean, maybe slightly down in comparison to a trail race having 800 runners over 2 distances is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Willing to bear the heat, but let's talk about some results that took place there. So for the 50K, we have Nick Marshall, and I'm going to be the first to admit Nick Marshall is someone that lays low on my end. I'm not too familiar with him, but he threw down the 7th fastest time in Afton course history. And now Afton is one of the originating trail races in the Midwest. It has been around for 25, 30 years, dating back to races in the late 1990s. And for this guy to go out and run a 3 hour, 39 minute, 2-second 50K at Afton, which averages out to a 7:03 pace, is quite an incredible performance on a warm, hot, sunny day out there. So
cook it.
Good for Nick.
Yeah.
Incredible for Nick. Kirk DeWent rounds out second, and Mike Burns takes us into third for a full podium right there. And if you guys remember, Kirk, we mentioned, took down the Superior 50K in May. So he was going for the repeat and fell short. It was Nick's day, and Nick kind of,
how close to Nick? How close?
Not that close.
Not that close.
23 minutes difference, which for a 50K is a pretty big spread right there.
That is a big spread.
Pretty big spread. So, well, let's get the 25K some love as well, too. Another runner I'm not all too familiar with, but David Nogle takes it down at a 1 hour, 40 minute, 26-minute win, which averages out to a 6:28 pace, which is also cooking.
Wow.
And then we also have previous mention of the podcast as well too. Rob Mulkey takes down second, and we mentioned Rob for taking second at Big Alta 100K out in California, and he finished it 1 hour, 40 minutes, 46 seconds, which these guys were hammering down to the wire on that one. And then Jesse Peterson rounds out the podium of 1 hour, 44. So overall, I saw had a lot of familiar faces, a lot of friends that were out there running, taking on the loop course of Afton, and sounded like a great event. Tons of volunteers, tons of people out there. It was warm, but weather cooperated, and people had a good time. So
If you're close to the race and you can make it happen, what an awesome way to start out your 4th of July weekend. So congrats to those runners. And you know what? It just goes to show you that people are wanting to run regardless if it's Independence Day.
And it was a big finisher rate too. I mean, everyone that started the 25K finished it. So 100% finisher rate for 25K.
Yep.
And 258 of the 282, which brings us to a 92% finisher rate for the 50K as well too, which for a warm day,
I was going to say it was hot.
Pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Pretty phenomenal. So when you average the two together, we're talking about 95% finisher rate out there. So good for them.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Runners. Well done. Well, should we move to the Hardrock 100? Because this is something that's developing kind of as we sit here, but race is supposed to start July 10th. Gold Mountain Fire. There's a burning near Ouray,
Colorado.
Ouray, Colorado.
Yes. And that's how this kind of came up on our radar, because we kind of tale of two stories here is that Ouray was very preemptive in canceling their race in advance, right? So the inaugural Ouray 100 race is supposed to take place here in the upcoming weeks, and they have a 100-mile race, a 50-mile race, and the race directors came out and said, race is canceled specifically for the Gold Mountain Fire. And it's in the San Juan Mountains, which is exactly where Hardrock's run, which is why we're going to sit here and have this conversation today about the potential cancellation, because we're already seeing 100-mile races out there getting canceled as we speak right now. And I know that everyone's familiar with Hardrock, and wow, brings some concern, I would think, because a lot of big names that are going to be running out there.
Would only be its 4th cancellation in like a 36-year history.
Is that what it is?
And, you know, this would be a really big deal. Now, if they cancel, it's done for good, right? There's no rescheduling this race if it's canceled.
I technically don't think so,
Yeah.
because like we've talked about in past, but like the permitting process that goes along with this, and just all of the logistics and coordination of rescheduling this almost seems impossible, because I don't think you're going to be able to get permits to be pulled, especially if the range and the ground is under fire as we speak right now. But for those that are looking for something, Tom Evans, who won UTMB last year, was making the transition to go and chase Hardrock this calendar year, did a phenomenal episode on the single track released earlier this week. And he touched on the potential cancellation here just real briefly. And he made mention that, you know, you can't ignore that it's inevitable. It's going to happen, but he's going to train up to the race. Like, it will go on as normal. It sounds like a lot of the elite runners are already starting to look at pivoting races right now, because fitness is there and they're preparing for this race. And like, this was a big bucket list race for a lot of runners out there. And so would hate to see this happen.
I mean, as a runner, you put so much time, effort, you're traveling, you're putting all of that into a potential race. And I wonder too, even like, how do they handle it? Did they refund the runners after a race like this? I've heard that it might not be a refund eligible race.
I look at like Rocksteady's races, which are just what we touch a lot on and we talk about here.
Yeah.
You sign up and it's at your own discretion of no refund. I mean, you're at the mercy of whatever Mother Nature delivers, whatever the race itself delivers, whatever the permits deliver at any given time. You're SOL if it happens. And so I don't know, Garrett. I mean, what do you think? What is that? Do you think that, you know, they say, hey, race goes on and we pull the trigger 12, 24 hours before in hopes that we can have some containment here? Or do you have to start being a little proactive, because July 10th is not very far away?
It's like, do you follow suit with the proactive Ouray, who has already canceled their race, and then understanding that you could put runners in danger? I mean, that's a close by fire.
I think you just hammered it right there, because I think that's the hard look, is that you have another race in the exact same area in the same mountain range that already put out a statement, already canceled the race and said, our number one important is for the volunteers the runners, the crew, the racers, and people that are watching, spectators watching the race. And their safety is of utmost importance. And so you'd hate to see a race like Hardrock go down. But
I'm even thinking like fires in general. It's not just the fire and the safety; it's the air that you're breathing when you're out there as well. So you got runners just sucking air, and that's not good for anyone to be out there. You'd hate to see it be canceled, but for the safety of the runners, I'd lean towards probably following suit, and that's a shame to say, but you don't want that bad air out there either. So
such a tough call because it's such a fun race to follow. It's, I mean, not a great watching race, but I mean, you love to see what these people can do and put out there because it's probably the hardest race in the United States. So.
And we'll continue to follow it, guys. We might come out, and provide some updates as this thing progresses, but we'll just have to see what happens now.
Sure. Have you been following this? Have you been, let's, as we say, let's jump from the trail to the pavement, and we don't talk a lot of pavement, but when we do, typically there's something going on out there. And Boston Marathon, the marathon that everyone wants to run, the marathon that people are trying to qualify for and they're trying to get their foot out to, only made it harder to get there.
It's already hard enough, right?
What'd they do?
So they cut the standard 5 minutes. It's now 5 minutes faster that you need to qualify for this race. So 2:55
for the age brackets, for the specific age brackets they have in there.
Yep. 18 to 34 now need 2:55 for the Boston Marathon. Now, you did a little bit of quick math, and what is it? 11 seconds faster for each mile of this race.
If you're under that 34 age, where sub 3 was that barrier that had to break, that 2:59.59. Now you're at 2:55, and you're saying, well, where am I going to make up these 5 minutes? And when you break that down of how many seconds per mile you have to back off, 11 and a half seconds per mile over 26. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but like, we go back and we talk about like that 2-hour barrier. Now I know we're splitting hairs; those are two big differences. But like, the elite runners are like, I don't know how I could make up 4 or 5 seconds sometimes. Now we're talking about having runners who are good runners, they're qualifying runners, but having to make up 5 minutes is pretty substantial.
It is substantial. Now, is this a play because the field it's such a popular race? Everyone wants to run this race. They're making it even more difficult. I wonder what their intention is by doing this.
I think running's getting a second wind in life of everyone. You hear of everyone running again right now. You hear of everyone wanting to go out and run a marathon, run a half marathon, whatever it is. And so it's like, it's this new quote unquote, I use air parentheses quotes right now, fad again, because you see everyone doing it. And so when you have more people wanting to run, more people chasing this stuff, you're going to get people that are a lot faster. You're going to get people that are fitter. You're going to have more people trying to do this. So I should maybe look some more into this, but I think that just you're having so many people qualify. And again, it goes back to, you can only have so many people race. And if you have tons of people qualifying at sub 3, you probably have to tighten the ropes here a little bit, right?
33,267 applications for this field, for this race. And maybe this is like, hey, we got to narrow this down. We got to make this a even more exclusive race, but the thing is already incredibly exclusive. And so I guess to some degree I get it. To other, I'm like, that is an incredibly fast
like they said,
to be able to qualify.
33,000, they couldn't hold them all. They couldn't have them all race right there. And so maybe they're just trying to tighten that up so they don't have people saying, well, I qualified and you didn't let me in. And so, how do you pick and choose who gets in there? It's a fine line, right? Fine line.
It's a fine line.
So that was part 1.
Yeah.
Part 2 is one that I think people used and abused for too long. And it was the net downhill qualifying races that people were, they said, hey, I need to get my qualifying time for Boston. And they were choosing appealing courses that tended to have a net downhill elevation on there. And so what BQ is doing now moving forward is that they are adding time back to your finishing time. So 5 minutes for any race that goes 1,500 to 3,000 feet of net elevation drop. You're getting 10 minutes for anything that's 3,000 to 6,000. And anything that's net 6,000 doesn't qualify at all. At all. And so the world of net downhill racing is going to go bye-bye.
I know that Truett Haynes, Cam Haynes' son, got a lot of crap because he was picking a particular race that had a net downhill of somewhere in these categories. I don't
I think it's
remember
St.
where.
George's one.
Yes, it was St. George's one.
Yeah.
And he was getting a lot of crap from all the keyboard warriors that, hey, does this even count? Should this count? BQ's coming out and saying, now we're going to dock you for this. And anything above 6,000 feet, it's not counted, period.
Yeah. I think there's a race in South Africa or somewhere out there that has like, it's just a pure downhill mountainous road race that, was qualified for Boston for the longest time. And so I'm sure they're just like, that one needs to be eliminated. And it was kind of one of those ones where like grandma, I know it's not a huge net downhill, but overall, I think the duration of the race, you are getting a net negative elevation on that. And so luckily that one falls in the threshold of does not have any penalty times.
No
added along.
penalty. Okay.
No. So kind of interesting, kind of something to keep our eyes on to see how it's received. I don't think that it's going to be received poorly because people are just say it's 5 minutes, but 5 minutes can add up a lot at the end of the day. And so we'll see what effect this has on the running community.
And you wonder, with a race as big as Boston, do other races follow suit and start implementing certain things, especially ones that have not necessarily this high of exclusivity, but in that range of exclusivity, do they do the same thing?
What I could see have happening is seeing some of these. There was a post out there. I'll have to find it. Maybe we'll post it or link it somewhere. But it had about 8 to 10 courses that were all Boston races that had large net downhill. And so what I could see have happening is seeing these race directors or organizations maybe not taking offense to this, but maybe modifying their course and modifying some areas to get it to where it's still net negative, but maybe just getting it right at that threshold of like a 1450 instead of the 1500 pit category where you don't get penalized. And so we could see some people just maybe manipulating their courses, manipulating some routes.
And think about it from that side.
Yeah. And so keeping the integrity of the race, keeping people wanting to come there. And we'll just see how Boston responds to that, because I could see that being a real big potential.
Interesting.
Yes, sir.
Well, we got to talk about some heat here. We've experienced heat here on a big level. I went to Florida and was running in Florida, actually started kind of rerunning in Florida, and the heat was incredible. And what I noticed immediately was I didn't have to go very fast at all before the heart rate really, really spiked. And so we want to be able to break down, is heat training a thing? How can you properly heat train? What's it going to do for you? What's your take on it? And how first of all, how has running been going into heat for you?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very difficult to do. And especially for us Northerners, us Midwesterners, and shout out to the growth of the podcast, because we have so many people that don't live in the Midwest and live in the North. And they're probably like, oh, I run in the heat all day long and I can't relate with you guys whining and crying about 85 degrees. But it's like, that's hot for us, because we only have like this intense heat 3-4 months out of the year. The other 8 months for us are relatively mild or below freezing. And so it takes a long time for my body to get acclimated to that. And for me, the only metric that I really tend to have to go by, which I don't even like to go by or even listen to, is this Garmin heat acclimation you have on your watch, because all it's doing is just checking your intensity that you ran and taking some heart rate correlation and the temperature outside. It's not really a great true metric. It's just basically, what is your volume outside? And so is it difficult to acclimate? It's very hard to go, because like you said, the number one thing that you start to recognize is your heart rate spiking, right? I mean, is that what you first noticed? Your heart rate spiking, the sweat loss, the sodium loss, all of that stuff?
All of that stuff. And even at the high humidity times, just harder to take in air. It almost feels like it's harder to breathe out there, which is obvious, right? But between all of those things, the sweating, the electrolyte loss, the hard to breathe, and the heart rate, I mean, it can really, really add up.
So you have a phenomenal study that I want you to read here. And before you do that, is there are two kind of variations when we talk about running specific heat training. And I look at them both of running outside, and I'm not saying necessarily like sweatsuit training, but like running outside in the heat of the day, finding moments where you know that your core body temperature is going to rise. Because what people think about when they think about heat training, they think about, oh, it's so hot, I'm sweating a lot, I'm doing all these things. But heat training specifically is speaking about our core body temperature rising and how can we handle when our core body temperature hits a certain threshold point. And so the study that you have referenced coming up here is a great example of one specific version of heat training, which is completely exposing our bodies to uncomfortable heated situations post activity, post workout, in comparison to where we see people doing sweatsuit training, or they're wearing a little, maybe not like sweats, but like additional layers, and wearing that during an actual run, where that can have its benefits, but we're also seeing it be counterproductive because we want our core body temperature to rise, but our heart rate to be able to remain level and not continue to spike with the core body temperature. And so heat training outside might be, let me forget what pace looks like. Let me say, I don't even care what pace. Let me find the hottest point of the day to run and try and maintain a certain set threshold heart rate and do not exceed that. Maybe get on that fine line of figuring out a pace that's right there. But if I exceed that, I need to stop down. And so you ask, how's it been going for me? And when I've been getting my body acclimated over the last 2 weeks, my volume, my mileage, my speed is not up because I'm trying to get myself acclimated again. And I'm doing a ton of run walking right now.
Yeah.
A ton of run walking.
Yeah. What I'll notice too is anytime I hit elevation of any kind, it spikes. And so as soon as I get to the top of a hill or whatever the case, I got to walk it for a little bit just to get that heart rate back down and get into a manageable level. So
it's a big mental game for people too, because they get out there and they run and they're like, oh my gosh, where'd my fitness go? Where'd my fitness go? I can't handle this. But it's like, you have to remember, your body's getting used to like these uncomfortable heat situations that you haven't been in for so long. And so walking is finding a comfortable, hard walking pace to integrate in during your runs is something that people should not be ashamed of, should not like, that
Not
should
at
be
all.
completely integrated into the plan right now. So, but I'd love for our listeners to hear about this study, because this is kind of part 2 of heat training, which, if you talk about like a David Roche, who is like the main front of like weird integrated, like niche product, like training techniques, this guy, what you're getting ready to read about, is his number one go-to technique for heat training.
I love it. So study here at Bangor University in Bangor, Maine, 17 non-heat acclimated men did a 6-day protocol where they went on a 40-minute run in temperature conditions, high temperature conditions, followed immediately by 40 minutes in a 104-degree hot bath. The hot bath group ran about 5% faster, roughly 60 seconds, in a 5K time trial in hot conditions afterward. The control group took a lukewarm bath instead, saw no benefit. Follow-up research from the same lab found those adaptations were still measurably present at least 2 weeks after dropping the hot baths.
That's what's crazy.
So just a hot bath after the run created kind of an immediate benefit, and then it lasted.
It's basically keeping your core body temperature up. And it's when your activity stops, your heart rate is going to start to settle, but your core body temperature stays at an elevated rate right there. And so David has a great episode where he talks about this 104-degree temperature. And you've kind of twisted and manipulated, found different numbers, and the typical hot tub that you buy from any given store has kind of a threshold temperature that it doesn't let you exceed on, right? And he said that, well, you take it apart, you change a couple wires, you change a couple things, that you can maybe start to increase it a few higher degrees. And I don't remember the exact temperature he said, but there are doctors that say it's completely unsafe. So we're not advising this by any means. We do not advise
Try
this.
it at home.
But
I'm going to go take apart mine, though. Mine goes to 103.
Does it 103?
Yeah, and sometimes I find that's okay, and sometimes I find it doesn't feel that hot.
Yeah. So he says, go on a run, and even like, it doesn't necessarily have to be in like after your runs or after whatever, but just like getting your body acclimated to like really hot conditions is going to help you anaerobically run. And so I didn't have access to a hot tub or hot water. They talk about hot bath, but what I did a lot of was the run and immediately into sauna. So saunaing right after. And I did that for a long time. It helps. It works out. So it's really just focusing on core body temperature type of stuff. And so when people say, "Oh, are you heat training? Are you heat training?" when you go out and run in the heat of the day, I necessarily don't consider that heat training unless you're partnering it with something specific.
That's a good point.
Where, immediately, like, continuously, like, go to a hot bath or go to a sauna, or if you don't have access to those, treating your heat runs at the heat of the day, the hottest portion of the day, and like not cooling yourself for like 15 or 20 minutes after.
Stay outside, stretch outside. Just lay out, whatever you got to do, lay outside if you have to, but maybe a warm down outdoors and stuff. And you also notice when you come back in from a hot run and you get into an AC, it's not that great. You're freezing your butt off.
Yeah.
So it might be beneficial for two reasons too, kind of slowly acclimate yourself back in.
So
I've heard stories of one gentleman, you might know him, that would like wear a sweatsuit to CrossFit in the middle of the summer, like, and just like do a freaking workout.
have you felt in like the past couple days that you've been running, are you noticing your body already adapting, or are you still kind of in that 2-week transition phase of getting yourself back to where?
Yesterday was the first day where I'm like, okay, my heart rate is finally in a manageable, nothing crazy, but in a manageable level that it hadn't been before. I was pushing high 150s, 160s when I'm running at a 9-10 minute pace, something like that. This was the first day where I kind of got it to a manageable level.
Yeah.
But it takes a while. They say it takes 7 to 14 days of consistent exposure before you might even see any benefit.
Yeah, it can take a while. And I think that the interesting stat that we have here is that how the exposure percentage, like even after you're continuously doing this heat exposure training, how you can see benefits a week to 2 weeks after. But I think that there's a point in the study as well too that we didn't mention here, is that if you start to stray away from the heat, if you start to, maybe maneuver your workouts inside, or you're not running at peak heats of the day, and I'm not saying that you have to do that every day, but at least integrating it in there a few times a week, you will start to see the loss of benefits just as quickly, or just like as long as it took you to gain them. And so it's almost like you have to continuously like find a good rhythm, find a good pattern, that how many days you're going to do this, or when you're going to do this, and stick with it. Because if you start to back away from it, you're going to see losses come with that.
We think about it in Minnesota too, and we don't have the longest summer, but it still is hot, and we get that really hot streak into September when races like Superior happen. So you never really know what it's going to be like.
You literally stole my next thought, because I don't remember who said this, but it really stuck and resonated with me. And it said, heat training is one of the most slept on training mechanisms that people do not use in their training, because it does not matter if you're running. People always, like, and we mentioned this past, people think heat training, they think Western states, they think mountainous or desertous races. But he was saying the benefits that you can have even in September, October, in mild weather races where you're specifically heat training, you are going to have such better benefits running in cooler weather, because your body's adapted to like hot temperatures. And so when you're starting at a cooler temperature, and then like as the day progresses, and even if you have a 5-6 degree temperature change, it's not going to affect your body, where it might affect other people that are having these, that didn't specifically heat train. And so as the Midwest or as the North or wherever you're at starts to cool down, maybe finding something to say, hey, well, it was a little cool outside. I just need to go get my core body temperature up, go jump in the sauna, go jump in the hot bath right after your run, rather than sitting down or doing something. And so it's like continuously trying to integrate that into your progress, even as it starts to cool down outside. But I don't think we see any cool down anytime soon around here.
How often, when you're running now, when you're doing some of this heat training, how often are you either spending more time outside, jumping into the sauna? Is it an every run thing? Are you trying to mix it up a little bit?
Currently, I would say it's 5 to 6 days out of the week right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Not meaning that we're having a complete heat strained like workout, but just there are going to be specific days that it's like, hey, this is a heat trained focused day. But like maybe the next days or the 2 days after that, it's just an easy run at the peak of the heat, of where I say, hey, heart rate's not going to exceed 145 today. And whatever that pace ends up being at 145 heart rate pace, if it turns into a 12-minute walk for me, that's what my day ended up being. But that's what it has to be, because I just want to continuously like get my body used to the heat, and in return, making sure that my heat training protocols are working, that I'm able to control my heart rate at those peaks, to where if I say, hey, heart rate zones are 145 to 150 today. If I exceed that, and if I go out and if I'm walking or if I'm at a really slow jog and I'm continuously exceeding that, my heat training is not working.
Hmm.
And so I got to figure out something. I got to change something. I got to adapt something. I got to figure it out. And so I think continuously like exposing yourself to heat and just, it's like with anything, staying consistent with it. That's when the benefits will come, right?
Next question. Could you feasibly start, or have you done this where you played around with an April or May running in a bunch of clothes and start almost kind of pre-starting heat training and then jumping in a sauna afterward? Could that be advantageous?
I think it was Tom Evans said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that you are going to see benefits from it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's anything that just, it would have been, we resort back to Elm Creek and you've mentioned a bunch of how warm it was that day.
Gosh.
And we didn't have those warm days leading up to the race. We didn't have these warm, you know, workout environments. And so if we would have maybe taken a month just to focus on some of that heat training adaptation, and maybe it didn't have to be running in these environments because it's hard to come find by, but maybe it was like getting on the stationary bike and then immediately jumping in the sauna right next to us right after.
Mm-hmm.
We could have probably seen some really big benefits come from that, which we're not able to get in those, October through April months up where we're at right now. Right. And so,
And do you think about it during those months too? Are you trying to think? I mean, that's almost like it's so far gone when you're in the dead of winter. But it still pays, and that's why one of the reasons why I love CrossFit is you go and get really, really hot at CrossFit, and you finally sweat a little bit out there. Maybe you jump into a sauna. I mean, how much are you keeping this in mind when you're out there in the middle of winter?
that's what's hard.
Yeah,
That's what's hard. 'Cause I
yeah.
don't think very much for us, right? Because we're gonna have a great winter running racing episode, and us in the Midwest kind of take a shift to winter racing.
Mm.
So it's really hard to think about heat training, sauna training. There's a great influencer runner that had a great performance at one of the BPN races, the 50-mile races, and he's known for going on his runs and immediately he has like a sit down sauna. It's like 2 feet off the ground, 3 feet off, and he just crawls up in a ball and just sits up underneath there for 15, 20 minutes after every one of his runs. That's what he's known for. And he just posts his videos of him sitting in there. So it's not hard to do. Some of these saunas you can get on Amazon for 20, $30. They're like little steam type of saunas.
Oh yeah,
And
work really well.
yeah. Do you have
Mhm.
one?
I have one. Yeah. Especially in the winter, I love using it. But even right now, those steam saunas, they get hot,
Yeah.
and they're very, very affordable on Amazon. And so maybe good to think too for me is like do something at the end of the run to maybe extend the heat, keep your body at that higher temperature. Like I said, even if it's just a quick stretch session outside
Yeah.
before I come
I think
inside,
that's a great idea.
it's good for me to remember.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see because, like, as we talk about this, just touching base here and next week or the week after, and just continuously keep updated on this. And we'd love to hear if other people have ideas and talking points because this is like it comes into like training theory. Everyone's training theory is different. Everyone has different ways and mechanisms of going about stuff. And so, hearing if other people have ideas, thoughts, weird methods or madness of how they go about things would be really intriguing to listen to it because
Yeah, and great call too. You don't need a sauna. You don't need a hot tub. A hot bath works just fine. And you could dry yourself a hot bath as soon as you're done running, or whatever the case may be, and jump in there too. Whatever gets the job done. And I've even seen, I don't own one, but there's these heat suits, right? Like, have you
Mhm.
ever had a heat
Mhm.
suit where you just put it on and it inevitably causes you to sweat because there's not a lot of airflow in there?
Take it off. It's like a pool of
It's a
water. It
pool.
comes flying out of there.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
well, we jumped and we talked about Dead Kalgoorlie a few weeks ago, right? And we just touched on that race real briefly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually just popping through YouTube the other day because we've talked a lot about documentaries and we love documentaries. And there is a couple on YouTube, Kara and Nate. Not specific running. It's not a running channel. They're just a vlog. They're really well known. They got a couple million followers, but just a couple that vlogs, travels the world, does a lot of traveling stuff. But this Nate guy has really engulfed himself in the running world recently. He's done I think he did Cocodona last year. He's done Moab. He's done he's done tons of trail races. Leadville.
He's run his goal is to run 100-mile race
Yes.
on every single continent. I think he's up to 5
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
So
it was, and so he, so to your point was he had to go to Australia, right? And to get his 100 miles, and they ran their first ever backyard ultra out there. phenomenal documentary they put together because it was interesting to get a little bit of a different perspective because they were it was a fun experience for them. It was kind of a party experience where a lot of the documentaries we see these days are like so hyper focused on here's X, Y, and Z of how we did it. Here's how we set up. Here's our game plan. Here's the ins and outs. Get things. And these guys are like wearing sparkly crystal jackets. They
Created a disco in their tent.
having a great time, right?
Yeah, they were having a ton of fun. And it was cool because Nate ran with his brother, who also hadn't run. I don't think he had run any 100-mile race in his life. And he's shooting for this backyard and also participating. But they did. They had a ton of fun with it. And you can tell, too, they've been around the block when it comes to documentary because it was really well put together.
Like professionally done.
Yeah.
And I think that what's interesting about this one is that Nate, like you had mentioned, had the goal of going into this race 100 miles. 100 miles was on the bucket. And it was nice to get his commentary and his sense of like, what his thoughts were. He thought that over 100 was doable. He said 124 hours was the goal, but he thought over 100 was doable. And you get his inside thoughts of like how difficult the race really was as it progressed. And he's like, I did not anticipate this race to be so extremely difficult. And that's what we hear from a lot of first-time backyard ultra runners, where it's like, it's 4 miles. I can do that at, 13-minute pace, just have a, run walk out there, but how mentally difficult it was in there. And I think there was a moment that why this is being brought up for us is you in the episode, every episode with run for someone who can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot to us, means a lot to you. It means a lot to people out there. And there was a moment in this documentary, and I'll let you talk about it and explain it, but Tim Walsh, the race director, Dead Cow Goalie, had a beautiful portion of that. You remember where we're at with that one?
Yeah, I think he was down and out or getting ready to quit or something. And Tim went up to him and just said, "Hey, remember, you're not running this for yourself.
Yeah.
You're running for those who can't run." And I watched it separately from you, and my eyes just lit up. It's like, that's why we're doing something like this. That's why it's so important, because there are plenty of runners out there, or plenty of people out there, I should say, who desperately want to run and either were previous runners or never got to run ever. And I just thought it's when you hear something like that and you're trying to put it all on the line, it like refocuses you on, wow, it's much bigger than me.
It made me want to get on my computer and immediately sign up for a backyard ultra because of like, I was like, I'm just going to save that portion of the clip and just look at it and have Tim say, there's someone in a wheelchair right now that literally can't get up and walk or run on their own. And you are going to do this next loop for them. And you are going to run this next loop for someone who can't run. And I was like, dude, this guy could have me run through a brick wall right now. I didn't care if I had to crawl on my hands that next loop. I was going to do that because Nate got up and that was like an hour, like early 20s. And he ended up running for 36 hours.
Yeah, he put on an incredible performance for his very first backyard. What I also found was funny, or not funny, but Nate's family, he got video calls from his family, his mom, his grandma, his grandpa, all these people that actually can't run. One had a replaced hip and one had a knee issue, and his mom struggles from something else. And so some family health issues. And they're all out there going, we're running our backyard. And were they really running a loop? No, but it was to give him motivation. The other thing that struck me about this one is that Nate talked about exactly what I was feeling when I ran this backyard. He mentioned that the starts and stops, do not sleep on them. They're so hard to start and then get up and start running again. And he said that was one of the hardest things that he experienced. He also looked at, like, when he first went out there, Australia is so beautiful that he thought, wow, this is going to keep us busy forever. Not when you run loop after loop after loop. Things get old. Things get monotonous. It's hard to keep anything fresh. And that was another struggle. And then it was just the sleep at night and the cold. I can remember how cold I was coming off that chair. And every time he came off, he's like, I'm freezing right now. I cannot get warm.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you watched someone else's first backyard and then relating with your first backyard that just took place recently. Were there a lot of similarities and relations of like what he was going through and experiencing from what you were going through and experiencing at the same time?
Yeah. And even like, it was hard not to think about, man, he's like, I can barely walk. I can barely lift my knee. He was struggling with a knee issue. And it still brought me back to, man, could I have ran on those feet a little bit longer? Like, they're struggling. They're doing everything they can, any kind of pace counts. You go out there and you try to complete that loop. And it did bring me back to, what ifs for my own backyard. But everything he was saying outside of that is so much what you experience. I think one of the most underrated things about the backyard is you get really comfy in that tent.
Yeah.
You get really comfy in your sleeping bag, and then you got to go back out. And it feels like this huge effort to get back out. And then you got to get your body warm again.
Yeah.
So
I think we've talked about this, but we are going to do a full another backyard breakdown, like a ins and outs of, run your first backyard, what to expect, what to go about this, because, the world of backyards are growing. People are loving them. We're seeing more and more of these races pop up. We're seeing people that are getting curious about that. And so, sharing just kind of the knowledge that we've taken in from others, what we've seen, what we've experienced, what we've gone through at our own, and just putting that out there for people to share, I think would be really, really beneficial.
yeah, and for me, I'm going to run my first 100K by the end of the year, and I ran my first 50K, and it felt like it was a race, but it felt relatively manageable. The backyard took so much strategy and there was so much thought put into it because it's underrated in that, oh, you just run a loop and then you just get up and you really have to practice some things and you have to have some things dialed in and you have to have a clear strategy to be able to go as long as you can. And I was talking to Max on a run recently and I'm like, the other big part about the backyard, there's not a sense of completion. You have to find that for yourself. You have to find your sense of completion about what you did out there because there's not going to be a finish line in the same way as another race.
So that brings me to a question to you then, is that going into your next backyard, would you go into your next backyard saying that there is a goal? Would you say that there is a goal, or would you still go in with a no goal mentality?
I thought it was really interesting what Nate said in this documentary. He said, if I go in and I say 100 miles or I go in and say 200 miles, I'm nervous that when I get to that point, I'm just going to be able to throw in the towel and quit because I hit that goal.
Yeah.
But yet I'm a goal oriented person. So it's like really this conflict. I got to say, I don't know at this point. I'm not sure. I want to have a goal, but setting my own goal in my mind and then not hitting kind of my ultimate stretch goal in that first one had a different kind of effect on me than I thought it would. But you also, like we talked about before, and I think we'll go into it much further when we talk about running your first backyard, is you got to go in and have multiple levels of expectations about that race.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't want a goal. How about you?
I think that my mentality has changed slightly.
Yeah.
When I say slightly, I'm a big believer of going to these races without expectations, because when you start to put limitations on yourself, and, I'm really speaking to more of the first, second time backyarders right now, where you maybe have not run a backyard and you say, I'm happy with 50 kilometers. And then I'm also speaking to the second time backyarder that says, well, I've ran 50 kilometers. Now I just want to go 100 kilometers. That mentality, I think, is okay, but I think it also places limitations on yourself. Now, I do think that there's a tier outside of that, which I feel there is a large grouping of people that can consider themselves inside of that, where it is saying, I have a number that I would be happy and satisfied with, but it's not what my end goal is. And I think that number should be something that people say, holy smokes, that's crazy. Where when you speak something into existence, other people know where you're at and can have some sense of accountability held on to you, to where when you come into that looping, they can remind you and say, hey, this is what you wanted to do. This is where you wanted to get to. And then when I get to that point, if I get to that point to where that number that I put out there, people are going to say, wow, that's crazy. And at the same time, if you do get there, you're at this spot of like, well, why quit now? I say that, and that might be the case. So, for me, like I'll speak into existence. I think 50 hours is the number that I say when I go to my next one. 50 hours, that over 200-mile threshold is that next point to where it's like that would be the horizon spot, right? That's where I look at it moving forward. Now, most people are going to say 50 hours. Wow, that's crazy. But at the same time, it's like, I need crazy. I need other people to hold me accountable. I don't know. I don't know if it'll work or won't work. Might backfire, but
I mean, I love that you did that. I mean, in us first talking about this, I think there was varying degrees of like, hey, do I want to have a goal? Do I have a goal? And you kind of helped me through figuring that out. But I'd be lying if I said that first race I wanted 100. Now that's over 3 times what I've ran in the past. So that is a goal that's like, holy shit, are you sure about, or, are you sure about that, Garrett? Yeah, that's what I want. It's still what I want. But because I ran 62.5 miles on paper, now I want double that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always these goals. But it's hard because when you get in there, what is quitting? Is your body quitting? Or is your mind quitting? I don't know. I still don't know if my body quit on me or if my mind quit on me. Not sure. Maybe I'll learn more as I do my second one and my third one, but it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah. I still think it's been 3 backyards for me, and I think I've had 3 mental quits each time. So maybe we'll figure it out. I still have not met a person that has said I have had a physical quit. A physical,
Seriously.
I can't. A physical quit to me is someone that, and this might sound extreme, but every person that has quit a backyard has been running the week after. I can't think of one person that I have like met in any race or outside of any race, and it's like, someone that I like, and I'm not black. I love the guy, love him. Nick Steele, Elm Creek, says 24 hours, and he fought for 24 hours.
He did.
And he said injury, physical was what hindered him from it, and he ran 100 miles a week and a half later again. And so
hard to argue that point. I walked the course the next day.
I don't know someone that has had a mental failure, because everyone that quits ends up running
physical failure.
Physical failure. Runs week and a half later.
That's a really good point.
But I'm sure there's people out there. There is absolutely people. I said I'm sure there's absolutely people out there that have pushed themselves. Sam Harvey, when he ran 115 hours, crossed that line and literally physically collapsed. 115 hours though. We're talking something.
Do we want to have a physical failure or do we want to have a mental failure? What's harder to admit? What's harder to say? They're both hard to admit.
That's the crazy thing, because that's what makes me sound like a psycho right now, where I'm talking, you got to run yourself dead into the ground. And that's not the case. But it's like, what is that line of mental versus physical? It's really hard to tell the difference.
And that's why the race is so intriguing in
right?
itself.
Right?
So
it really is.
Hey, kudos to Nate on his accomplishment, and kudos to his brother as well. He hit a great PR too, and ran much further than he ever did before. And go check out that documentary if you have a chance. It's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah.
So,
well, speaking of running and lots of running, what are you up to?
So I have been wanting to develop more consistency in my life for a while. Meaning I'm consistent in areas for a while, and then I have a tendency to fall off a little bit. And so we talked a little bit about, or we've discussed in the past, this grandma's marathon runner who ran grandma's 50 years or 50 races in a row, 50 years. And I thought about it, out of any individual stat or accomplishment of winning 3 races in a year or any of that, that was one that gave me goosebumps and kind of shook me to my core, the consistency of his accomplishment. And so I set out to create a challenge for myself to run every single day. I started on July 1st, and I'm going to run every single day for a year. And that is, there's some rules that I kind of have come up with myself, and I'm happy to share them if if that's cool. I mean,
why don't you?
Yeah,
I'm sure people would love to hear.
I want to run 1 mile, minimum of 1 mile a day.
Okay.
And the reason why I set that is, it's easy to say I'm going to run 2 miles or 3 miles. I know how hard this is going to be for me personally to be that consistent over that period of time. So it has to be outside. So all the weather that comes with Minnesota, thankfully in our training together for the backyard, I have a little bit of experience, or a lot of it, running throughout the winter, but I didn't run every single day, not even close. And I'm going to do that for a year. And I'm also going to post maybe the run. I have you as my accountability kind of friend and partner. to be able to let you know either when I'm out on the run or when I finish the run. And I want to post a little bit of, just my thoughts on the day or whatever the case may be. And in doing this, it's just for me. It's not something. Well, I guess it's for me and for maybe anyone that I can share any piece of wisdom with. But it's hard. It's scary for me.
Well, it's scary in the sense of physically scary or mentally scary or a combination.
Mentally, and I'll tell you why. Physically, for sure, and I'm really trying to. I'm really trying to be smart about pacing myself and doing the right thing that way. But mentally, because if everyone asks me like, oh, is it failure that you're scared of, or what's exactly going on in your head? And for me, if I don't complete this, does that mean that I've continued the narrative in my head that I'm just not as consistent of a person as I want to be? And not reaching that is a scary thought for me. Now, what happens? I haven't even really thought about it, but what happens if I complete it? Am I more consistent now? I guess I'm trying to anticipate the journey, but ultimately it's a day by day thing. Like, have I run today?
Hmm.
Can I get my run in today? And so,
One day at a time.
one day at a time, one day at a time. And for those of you out there that, have ever wanted to do something like this, streaks are very controversial. Some people are like, I don't need a streak to go out and run. And I totally get that. I didn't need a streak. But for me, what happens is, and I'll give you an exact story of why, is I'll run a big race and then I'll kind of fall off for a little bit. And I don't really know exactly why, but I won't run for a relatively long period of time. And I'm not just talking about to recover, but it'll be hard for me to get back on the horse and start running. And I don't want that. I know how much running has helped me in my life with my mentals, with my physical, with just the love of running. And I thought, let's just test it out and see what happens. What does it look like to run every single day? How will I feel? What will it do for me? What will it do for the people around me? How will it help me handle races and post races differently potentially? So there's a little bit that goes into it, but ultimately 1 mile every single day minimum. It has to be outside until next year, July 1st.
So before I forget,
Yeah.
I want to see other people join on this train.
Yeah, I would love that.
I would love to see it's not a group. This is a self journey for their own people, right? This is not a, you mentioned some stuff that I was just sitting here thinking on of like, the envisionment of the what ifs. What if there was that day? What if that inevitable day comes? And it almost relates back to the conversation we had 5 minutes ago in the backyard of, is that an end point? Is that the end goal? Or do we say, not, we talked about accountability, which I'm going to touch on here, and not that I'm saying that is going to happen or we're going to go, or do we just say, okay, day one starts again tomorrow? And I think that is what's awesome about this. And I think that's why I challenge this out there to everyone. And it's like, maybe, for you, you're saying 365 days that's where we're at right there. But for someone else, maybe it's say 30 days, get this month done. And I would love to see how many people can jump on that train right there and have just like this large communal sense of like accountability out there, because having a sense of accountability between the two of us has been, you said July 1st and it's only been a few days, but it's been a lot of fun already right now.
Fun.
And I've said, hey, this is your deal. Like I don't want to take anything away from this, but I am going to jump on the train and I'm going to do this with you because I'm not going to let you do this alone. I'm not going to let you have all the fun by yourself right now. And especially when days come up of holidays, sickness is inevitable, kid life and family life is inevitable. Things are going to happen. And then just being able to have someone that you can reach out to or vice versa. If you're not hearing from that person and they reach out to you and say, hey, you got 20 minutes to squeeze out today. And if it's 11:40 at night and I still see you haven't run and vice versa, you best know that you're getting a text or you're getting a call saying you got 20 minutes to get your mile in today. Because I'm not having waking up tomorrow morning and not seeing you got your mile in right there. Now, like we said, life happens. But for right now, we are one day at a time. And we're going to run today and we're going to do the same thing again tomorrow.
I love what you said. And I think it also goes back to the backyard piece of, you have to be able to understand that your mental does guide your physical in almost every sense of the word. And if you can run sick and you can run on holidays and you can squeeze something in, your mental is really, really powerful. I want to read a study that's interesting about streaking and about running streaks. But 2024 study interviewed 21 recreational runners with streaks from 100 days up to more than 4,500 days over 12 years. It found streaking builds identity, motivation, self regulation. Many reporters, however, reported running with an injury potentially, or skipping recovery to protect the streak. Now, ultimately, it does skip this. This is one thing that when I looked at this in totality, I'm like, that means that I don't have a true like no running recovery day. But running at a pace that is manageable can be a form of recovery if you do it in the right way.
I think about, like, I'm sitting here and I'm visualizing right now, September the 12th, the day after Superior 100. And I just know how wrecked your body is. And like the sense of it takes you 10 minutes to get in and out of your car. And then thinking about, well, now I'm going to have to go squeeze in a mile somehow today.
What are you going to look like doing that too?
It's going to be comical. I mean, I'm going to have to tell my wife to get in the car and drive right besides me and take a video, because or she doesn't have to get in the car. She can just crawl on her knees, and she's pregnant right now and be fine doing that. She'd be able to keep up with me. But I mean, it'll be a sight to see. And I think that that's where, yeah, that's physically difficult, but mentally, like, you're like, the last thing you want to think about doing is running. The last thing you want to think about is, I have to go put my shoes on and get out there. And I don't think that it makes it seem like it's a chore or it's nagging. I think it's almost more of a mental battle, that if I can overcome this and if I can get out there and do that, what does that represent for me moving forward into other aspects, other areas of my life, other races upcoming, other loops that are coming, to where I can say, well, think about when I did this. Why can I not get out and run one more loop right now?
You're making me think about the backyard and the training that went involved. And there were so many nights in the winter that I didn't want to go out, but you were holding me accountable, whether we were texting every day, and we probably were anyway. I knew I had to get out there, and I would tuck the kids in at 8, 9 o'clock and go, yeah, the wind's blowing. It's -20. But I'm going out to run. And I would come in and feel so good about myself for having endured what I endured just to make that run happen. And to do that over the course of a year is really exciting.
So
So,
the run streak begins. It's fun. It's going to be out there.
yeah,
Let's get some people joining. Let's see what we can do.
would love it. Yeah. And like Tanner said, whether it's a 14-day, a 30-day, a 60-day, a 90-day, whatever the case looks like, give it a shot. One other really quick study is interesting, and I'll just read the last part, is looked at runners who broke long-term streaks and, streak stutters. They call it an emotional roller coaster or outright grief for breaking the streak. And they typically always say that they wish they would have just kept running and keeping the streak alive. So I love streaks. I love a good challenge, and this will probably be my biggest one yet. And thank you. I'm forgetting his name, but the gentleman who has run grandmas 50 times, you were one of my biggest inspirations for this.
Have you heard about the streak story about your good buddy, Max Jolliffe? Are you familiar with this?
I haven't.
So he was a well-known streaker.
Yeah.
Like, on Strava for the longest time, he was up in getting close to 2,000 days, maybe 1,800 days,
Wow,
give or take. And he went and ran, would have been one of the 200 milers. I don't remember exactly which one it was, and got rhabdo from it and got hospitalized. And he was in the hospital. And I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure there was a post out where he was asking to get out, to go out in the courtyard to continue his streak. And they said, there's not a chance.
they won't let you.
Not a chance. And so his streak ended at 1,800 days because he was hospitalized with rhabdo. So it won't come to that. But
Yeah.
man, it's crazy to see what breaks people's streaks, and how when you do get up to substantial numbers, you're like, dude, running put me in this position, but let me get out in the courtyard and get a mile in right now.
That's must be why him and Glaze are such good friends, because Glaze is a streaker as well, and
Yep.
he's put together some really, really good running streaks too. And I think he might be on one, but
Andy,
yeah,
the best running streak in the whole. He's at what is he? He's at over 300 weeks of running 100 miles in a row, over 5 or 6 years of doing.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize it was that
the
big.
best streak of all streaks.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I thought, what will this build to? Is there a potential streak in my future that would be great? But I've also, there's a lot of things floating around. Is like, pick a race, and then how many years can you do that race in a row? That's just fun.
Very
It's
cool.
just cool.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, we just talked about maybe just touching on this real quickly, and we're gonna do like a full-blown Superior breakdown. We've mentioned that like 3-4 times on here now. We keep mentioning that. We're kind of waiting to get a little bit closer to the race period. We're not far away at this point now. I mean, we're getting close to 8 or 9 weeks. I think it's less than 9 weeks at this point, to where I'm towing the line in Two Harbors. I've got a lot of good guys that are getting ready to help me. Garrett's going to be there. Schmitty, who's been on the podcast, he's going to be there. And Schmitty's brother-in-law, Micah, is going to be there as well, too. And Micah is, he's also currently actively training. He's on a training plan. He's getting ready to run some races in October as well, too. And so I've got 3 guys there to support me that know what they're doing. They're involved in the ultra world. They've run big races. I'm going to have amazing support. And so maybe having a conversation with them, and then just doing a full course breakdown, just talking about kind of the ins and outs of the sections. And like I had mentioned, it was something that I really looked for when I was going into this race, because it's daunting. It's a long race. There's a lot of variables that go into that. And so, but just kind of real quickly, for those that don't know, Superior starts in Gooseberry Falls, which is just north of Two Harbors in Minnesota. And we run all the way to Caribou Highlands Lodge in Lutz, Minnesota. So it comes out to 103 miles roughly of point to point single track on the Superior Hiking Trail. Extremely, extremely technical. Rocky, rooty, single track, poppy climbs. It's not a mountainous race, but you're constantly descending, climbing, very little runnable flats, virtually none. I mean, we're so blessed with the trails that we have in this area, where you can just go out and you can run fast and you can run flat. And it's like, you go up there and you're exposed to this course that you're like, what in the world is this? Because like, there's sections of this course. Like, I was talking with someone that is running the back half of the race, and they're like, what do I expect? And I'm like, I don't even know how to describe it to you, because there's spots that are like, it's like a spider web of roots, and you're trying to like do hopscotch to get through stuff.
Feels like it's barely a walking trail, let alone a running trail, let alone a race trail.
There's a gentleman that has a great saying that he was talking to his crew, and it was like, it's called the Superior Hiking Trail for a reason. It's not the Superior Running Trail. And they're like, oh, when you say that, it makes a lot of sense, because you can't run on majority of this. But to see some of these guys throw down insane, incredible times, like Jacob Wortman, who ran the race last year, ran a 21-hour race. And I know that there's some names that are going to be there this year that are eyeing up Neil Collick's record of 18:56. And so it'll be insanely impressive. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. I can't wait to break down the course in general and talk about what's all going to go along with that. But I think that just something we wanted to talk about real quick was just kind of like, what are our thoughts, expectations as like we get closer to the race? You're going to jump in and run with me, right? And Schmitty's going to run with me. I think Micah might even run a little bit, depending on how Schmitty's feeling and doing, if he's listening. But just a lot of excitement.
Tell the listeners too, like, what's the strategy? Because runners can start running around the 42 start having a pacer around the 42 mile mark. What's your strategy, and when do you feel like, or if you don't want to share it all, that's totally cool too.
No, I'm going to be an open book this year, and I think that's been been really beneficial to myself. And it's mile 42.6 is where first pacer can come into the race. And when you take the race course, you split it in half, and you take the 50-mile marker, halfway course, split it in half. A lot of people say that the first half of the course is a lot harder than the second half of the course. And there's the section specifically from Silver Bay to County Road 6. It's a 20-mile section, no crew, no support, no aid, or one aid station in the middle at the state park. And it is the most technical. It is the most demanding. It was the most climbing. You're at the heat of the day. You're exposed throughout the whole section of the course. And so the main thing that I'm thinking when I'm getting to you guys is I need to get to mile 42.6 not completely blown up.
Hmm.
I need to be able to have a pacer jump in with me, and I still need to be able to run. Now, I'm not expecting to be able to run, you know, like I was in the first couple sections, but I need to show up there still able to run. And I still need to be able to say, I have a pacer. I'm fortunate to have a pacer when the light is still on because I got there when the sun was still out last year. I plan on getting there when the sun is still out this year. And I want to utilize that and take advantage of that before that sun sets because that's when this course gets really hard. Because when it's dark and it's technical, it's very difficult to maneuver. It's very difficult to run in some of these spots. And so we've talked about you joining me at 42.6 because a lot of people say that 42.6 to 50 is probably the most runnable section of the whole course. You have a big climb right out of there, 600-foot climb. Once you climb and once you descend, you've got about 6 miles of really well paved, fast running trails, and that's about your best section of the whole course right there. And so, hoping to kind of take advantage of that as we get out of that aid station, and then have Schmitty lead me into the darkness of the night.
Yeah,
from there. So,
what's your, I mean, and we can talk a little bit more about the race, but I do want to know this will be my first time pacing. And, I'm curious on your thoughts on characteristics of a strong pacer or someone that shows up in the right way to be a pacer. You've been a pacer, you've had pacers, the whole 9 yards. So what does that look like for you?
I think it goes back to knowing your runner, and I think that I'm the person for my crew, my pacers that like it's okay to push me. It's okay to like get me out of these mental funks that I may or may not be in, but I think it's okay to try and push me. I know that I'm capable of being pushed. I know that I can handle it. I might not like you in the moment, but it's okay. And I think the characteristics out of a pacer that I'm looking for is that, you know, knowing where I'm at physically in that given moment and being able to adapt to that. And so it's like early on in the race, like 42.6, like I'm probably going to be feeling pretty good. Like we're going to probably be able to run, but knowing that my run is not going to be like, oh, we went out on a training run, right? Like right around here right now, and we're running at 9-10 minute pace. It might be a 12-minute pace, but that's a run. And for this given race, a 12-minute pace or 11-minute pace at that point of the race, we're doing phenomenal. Like we're cooking, we're on pace, we're probably ahead of pace. Like we're doing really good. And so knowing expectations out of a pacer is like being able to read where your runner's at physically at that given time. And maybe it's like, you know, let's give them 15 minutes to get out of this aid station, keep moving. We're not going to stay stagnant. And then being able to start, something I did with Schmitty, which was kind of fun. And he knows this is like, I picked him up at late in a race and we started running and we weren't running very fast to start with. But as we kept getting further along the trail, I was maybe going 5 seconds faster every half mile and 5 seconds faster every half mile. And so we looked at the splits. We finished a lot faster than what we started. And he maybe didn't even realize it. But as you just kind of maybe just start moving a little bit quicker because you want to keep up with your guy or vice versa, he's pushing you a little bit harder in the backside. And I think it all relates to just knowing your runner and where they're at that given time.
Yeah.
So
no, it's good. That's really, really good feedback. That makes sense. And obviously, as a pacer, you have to know. You not only have to know your runner, it feels like you have to know the field a bit. You have to know the course a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to know pacing and kind of where your goals are at.
Yeah.
But I'm just so excited to be there.
And I think it's staying on top of like something I really look out of like for crew and for pacers, helping you stay up on your hydration and nutrition because it's no different than other races that we've run. It's easy for us to trick ourselves and know like, I don't need it right now or I'm okay right now. And it's like we've mentioned 100 times, the moment you fall behind is the moment you can't catch back up. And so when you're out there and I'm guilty of it, the whole first half of the race, I can't run with anyone besides myself. And so I'm the only person to hold myself accountable to take that stuff in. And so when I show up to you guys, I have to make sure that I'm not blown up. I'm not behind on stuff because, then we're just playing a game of catch up for the whole rest of the race right there. And so, having a good crew, having a good pacing support that, helps lead you through that and keeping you accountable throughout the whole thing. And so it'll be really exciting. Yeah. As you guys follow along and then pacers will jump in and out and, we'll have a lot of good transition there. So
the real question was, is Steve going to be there?
No, he's gonna be mad.
He
wasn't. Okay. He told me he's going on a trip. Then he's not going on a trip. And then he was mad that we didn't invite him.
Do you know how many people have talked to me about Steve's presence at the backyard?
So,
I mean, so many people. Steve is a gift, and he was beloved at the backyards.
So we'll see. And like we said with the backyard, we'll put it out in the world. I think sub 24 is the goal this year, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was kind of a fun, just little talk around with what's going on in the world, what's going on with running. I don't think we have necessarily anything else going on right now. So we'll follow up on some Hardrock news with everyone next week. And we got some exciting interviews coming up again and talk with some people and fun backyard stuff. And we'll keep plugging along.
We'll keep bringing you the news. We'll keep bringing you the updates on these races and even updates on our own personal races and challenges. And we don't want to beg, but guys, a little bit of support goes a long way with this podcast. So if you could follow us, like us, share us, give us to a friend as a gift. We hope you had a great 4th. Keep running. Don't stop. And make sure, as always, guys, you run for someone who can't today. We'll see you on the next one.
Later.